I caught my wife cheating with my brother, found our twins in love with each other, and I was cheating too. I aired it all at a neighborhood party. Was I right to expose them? That phone call flipped my world upside down. Emily, my wife of 18 years, the woman I'd built a life with, was welcoming my brother Kyle into our home with a joy that wasn't meant for me. We had 2 kids together, John and Molly, 16-year-old twins, and I thought our suburban life, barbecues, movie nights, was solid. But I wasn't clean either. I was with Sarah, the glamorous wife of a real estate mogul who held my career in his hands. And something else gnawed at me. John and Molly's closeness felt wrong, beyond what siblings should share. My family was unraveling, and I didn't know how deep it went. I drove home from Sarah's downtown condo, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The cul-de-sac was quiet, our 2-story colonial glowing under streetlights. Emily was in the kitchen, tossing a salad, her blonde ponytail swinging. "How was the client?" she asked, sliding a glass of iced tea across the counter. Her smile was warm, but I caught her iPhone tucked behind a loaf of sourdough, its screen lighting up with a text I couldn't read. I sipped the tea, my throat tight, and mumbled, "Fine." Kyle had always been around, fixing our leaky faucet, tossing a football with John, or cracking open a Bud Light on our deck. "Family helps family," he'd say, clapping my shoulder. I trusted him. But now I replayed moments. Emily lingering with him in the laundry room, sorting towels, their shared laughs over some inside joke about a dive bar they'd hit in college. I wasn't there for those stories, and it stung. The kids were another puzzle. John and Molly were tight, always sprawled on the couch, sharing a blanket during Marvel marathons. I thought it was cute, twins sticking together in a world of high school cliques. But lately, I'd caught them whispering in the hallway, their heads too close, or sneaking out to the backyard gazebo after dinner. "Just talking," Molly would say, brushing her dark curls from her face. John would nod, avoiding my eyes. Were they hiding something, or was I paranoid? My own guilt didn't help. Sarah's perfume still clung to my shirt, a reminder of my lies. I'd started seeing her 6 months ago, after a late-night pitch meeting turned into drinks, then more. She was magnetic, silk dresses, sharp wit, a life I'd never touch otherwise. But every time I left her, I'd picture Emily's face, or the kids' graduation photos on our mantle, and hate myself a little more. Confronting Emily now would backfire. She'd call me crazy, and Kyle would back her up. The kids would clam up if I pushed. And Sarah? She'd laugh off any serious talk. I needed evidence, something concrete to prove what Emily and Kyle were doing, what John and Molly were hiding, and maybe even to face my own mess. I decided to turn my home into a surveillance hub, starting with small steps, checking phones, watching routines, and digging into the cracks of our perfect life. I began that night, slipping into the living room after Emily went to bed. Her iPhone was charging on the coffee table, passcode unchanged since we bought it. I opened her messages, scrolling past group chats with her book club and PDA moms. There it was, a thread with Kyle, no contact photo, just his initials. "Tomorrow at 7, he'd written, followed by a winking emoji. Her reply, a heart. My pulse hammered. I snapped a screenshot, sent it to myself, and deleted the trace. Step 1. The phone call haunted me, turning every glance and word into a clue. I started noticing things I'd ignored for years, my senses sharpened like a hunter's. Emily's behavior shifted. She'd say she was hitting spin class, but her gym bag stayed zipped in the hall closet. One evening, she breezed in at 9 p.m., her cheeks flushed, smelling of cedarwood and musk. "Traffic was nuts," she said, tossing her keys on the counter. I nodded, but my eyes caught her yoga pants, spotless, no sweat stains. Her iPhone lit up with a notification, and she flipped it face down faster than usual. Kyle was around constantly now, like he'd claimed a spot in our lives. "Thought I'd check the AC unit," he'd say, toolbox in hand, wandering into the house without knocking. Emily would light up, offering him lemonade, their fingers brushing as she handed him the glass. Their banter felt too easy, jokes about some concert they'd crashed in their 20s, before I met Emily. "You should have seen her dance," Kyle said once, winking at her across the dinner table. She laughed, but her eyes flicked to me, gauging my reaction. I forced a smile, my stomach twisting. John and Molly were harder to read. They'd always been close, finishing each other's sentences, teaming up for board games. But now their vibe felt secretive. I'd find them in the den, heads bent over a single phone, giggling until I walked in. "Just memes," John would say, pocketing his device. Molly's cheeks would pick in, her hazel eyes darting away. One morning, I spotted them in the backyard, sitting on the swing set we'd built when they were 6. Their hands were clasped, not casually but deliberately, like a couple stealing a moment. I blinked, telling myself it was nothing, but dread pooled in my gut. My own double life didn't make it easier. Sarah and I met twice a week, always at her sleek apartment overlooking the city. She'd pour wine, her laugh low and teasing, but I was distracted. "You're somewhere else," she said one night, trailing a finger down my chest. I shrugged it off, but she was right. I was dissecting my family's every move. Even Sarah felt like a puzzle now. I'd caught her texting someone during our dinners, her lips curving in a private smile. Was I just one of her games? I started small, testing my suspicions. I left my laptop open one evening, logged into our Ring doorbell account, and watched Emily's reaction. She glanced at it, then slid it shut, her fingers lingering like she knew it could betray her. With the kids, I asked about their weekend plans, casual but pointed. "Just hanging out," Molly said, but John's jaw tightened, like they'd rehearsed it. I checked Kyle's truck when he parked in our driveway. Inside, a receipt from a diner Emily loved, dated for a night she'd claimed to be at a PDA meeting. Every clue piled up, but it wasn't enough. I needed more than hints and gut feelings. I needed proof that would hold up in the court of my own conscience, something to confirm Emily's affair, the kid's secret, and maybe even Sarah's loyalty. I went to bed that night, Emily's soft snores beside me, and vowed to dig deeper, no matter how much it hurt. The uncertainty was eating me alive. Emily's laughter with Kyle, John and Molly's hushed talks, my stolen nights with Sarah, it was a house of cards, and I needed to know how it'd fall. I decided to gather undeniable evidence, turning my suspicion into action. I started with our home security system. We'd installed cameras after a neighbor's car was jacked, living room, kitchen, master bedroom. I hadn't checked them in years, but now they were my lifeline. I told Emily I was flying to a client pitch in Chicago for 2 days. "Gonna be slammed," I said, watching her face. She hugged me, her lips brushing my cheek, but her eyes danced. She was already planning. For John and Molly, I got sneakier. While they were at soccer practice, I synced their iCloud accounts to an old iPad in my office. Their texts loaded overnight. Molly to John, "Can't wait for Friday, face-blowing kiss." John's reply, "Same, love you." My breath caught, siblings don't talk like that. I saved every message, my hands shaking. Sarah was trickier. I couldn't confront her, she'd bolt, and I'd lose my leverage. During our next hookup, I waited until she showered, then skimmed her phone. A chat with read, "Last night was fire. When again?" Not me, she'd been with me then. I snapped a photo, my betrayal mirrored in her lies. Back home, I set the trap. I left for the trip, but checked into a budget and 10 minutes away, laptop open to the camera feeds. Within hours, Emily let Kyle in. They didn't waste time. Wine glasses clinked, then they were kissing in the living room, her hands in his hair. I felt sick, but kept recording. John and Molly got home later, sneaking upstairs like thieves. The bedroom camera caught them, embracing, whispering, their closeness all wrong. I stared at the screen, my world crumbling. Emily and Kyle, John and Molly, it was real, and worse than I'd imagined. My own affair with Sarah felt hollow now, a cheap escape from a family I'd failed. But I had what I needed, proof, raw and ugly, to face them all. I couldn't keep collecting clues forever, my head was spinning, and I needed answers, not just evidence. I decided to test the waters, talk to Emily, the kids, even Sarah, without tipping my hand. If I played it right, they might slip. I started with Emily over breakfast. The kitchen smelled of bacon, sunlight streaming through the blinds. "You've been off lately," I said, cutting my waffle. "Work stressing you out?" She froze, her coffee mug halfway to her lips. "Just the usual," she said, forcing a laugh. "PDA drama, you know." But her fingers twisted her napkin, shredding it into strips. I nodded, letting it drop, but her nerves were a neon sign. With John and Molly, I picked a moment after school. They were on the couch, scrolling Netflix, their shoulders touching. "You two seem glued together," I said, leaning in the doorway. "What's the deal?" Molly's face flushed. She tucked a curl behind her ear. "Just sibling stuff, Dad," John said, his voice too quick. Their eyes met, a silent pact, and I knew they were hiding more than homework. Sarah was the hardest. We met at her favorite rooftop bar, city lights glittering below. "You ever think about us, long-term?" I asked, swirling my whiskey. She smirked, her red lipstick sharp against her wine glass. "Jake, let's not get heavy. This is fun, right?" Her dodge hit me hard. I was a distraction, not a future. I smiled, but my mind was elsewhere, piecing together her other secrets. Each talk left me emptier. Emily's deflections, the kids' guilt, Sarah's flippancy, they were walls, not windows. I drove home that night, passing our mailbox with its chipped paint, the lawn we'd reseeded last spring. This was my life, but it felt like a stranger's. Talking hadn't cracked the truth, it just showed me how deep the lies ran. I needed to push harder, set a trap they couldn't dodge, and bring this house of secrets down. The half-truths and dodged questions lit a fire in me. I was done guessing. I needed to catch Emily, Kyle, John, and Molly in the act, undeniable and raw. Even Sarah, with her sly smiles, wasn't off the hook. I decided to set a trap, one big enough to expose everyone, including myself. I started with Emily, planting the bait carefully. On a Tuesday morning, I packed a duffel bag in our bedroom, making sure she saw me. "Big conference in Seattle," I said, zipping it shut. 3 days, maybe 4. "Client's a nightmare, so I'll be off-grid." Her eyes flicked up from her yoga mat, mid-stretch. "Oh, okay," she said, but her voice had an edge, excitement, not worry. "Safe flight, honey." I nodded, catching the way her fingers tapped her phone, already texting. I'd bet my 401k it was Kyle. The kids were next. I found them in the den, John strumming his guitar, Molly sketching in a notebook. "I'm out of town for work," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "Keep the house standing, yeah?" John grinned. "Too easy. No parties, promise." Molly nodded, her pencil pausing midline. Their casual vibe screamed rehearsal. They thought they'd have free reign. I smiled, but inside, I was wiring a net. Sarah got the cold shoulder. I canceled our usual Thursday meetup with a vague text. "Work's insane. Catch you later." I wanted to see if she'd push, or if she'd pivot to her other guy. Her reply came fast. "Miss you, stud face blowing kiss dot." Bullshit. I checked her Instagram later. She'd posted a selfie at a wine bar, her arm around a guy in a blazer. I wasn't even mad, just tired. Instead of Seattle, I booked a room at a dingy Motel 6 a mile from home, the kind with flickering neon signs and questionable sheets. My laptop hummed, linked to our security cameras, every angle of the house streaming live. I'd upgraded the system last month, adding mics for sound, telling Emily it was for safety. Now it was my weapon. The first night, I sat on the motel bed, a lukewarm beer in hand, watching the feeds. At 6:47 p.m., the front door opened. Emily, in her favorite sundress, let Kyle in, her laugh carrying through the mic. "Took you long enough," she teased, tossing her hair. He pulled her close, their lips meeting before the door even shut. My jaw clenched, but I hit record, capturing every second. They moved to the couch, wine glasses in hand, her legs draped over his like it was routine. She giggled at his dumb story about a fishing trip, her hand on his thigh. I wanted to punch the screen, but I kept watching, saving it all. John and Molly came home around 8 p.m., backpacks slung over their shoulders. I expected them to scatter, homework, Xbox, whatever kids do. Instead, they glanced at the empty kitchen, then headed upstairs, hand in hand. My heart sank as the bedroom camera flicked on. They slipped into our room, giggling like they'd done this before. Molly kicked off her sneakers. John tugged her close, their foreheads touching. "We've got the place to ourselves," he whispered. She smiled, and they kissed, not a peck, but deep, urgent. I froze, while rising in my throat. They weren't just close. They were in love, and it was wrong on every level. I switched feeds, needing a break from that image, and checked the backyard camera. Nothing, just fireflies blinking in the dusk. But the living room feed pulled me back. Emily and Kyle were half undressed now, her dress pooled on the floor. "Jake's gone till Sunday," she murmured, her voice thick with confidence. Kyle laughed, pulling her toward the stairs. They didn't even glance at the kids' closed door, oblivious to the other secret brewing under our roof. Sarah's texts pinged my phone again. "You ghosting me?" I ignored her, flipping to her socials instead. Another story. She was at a club now, dancing with the same blazer guy, her smile all teeth. She wasn't pining for me. She was juggling men like a pro. I leaned back, the motel's cigarette-stained ceiling blurring above me. Everyone was guilty. Emily, Kyle, the kids, Sarah, me. I'd set the trap, and they'd all walked in, but it didn't feel like a win. It felt like I'd lit a match in my own house, and the flames were spreading. I spent the next 2 hours downloading clips, organizing files, my fingers numb on the keyboard. The footage was a time bomb. Emily's affair, the kids' forbidden love, even Sarah's side hustle. But I wasn't done. I needed to see how far they'd go, how deep they'd dig their graves. I stayed glued to the screen, watching my family betray me in real time, knowing I'd have to face my own betrayal soon enough. The trap was set, but the fallout? That was coming, and I wasn't ready. The motel room felt like a prison, its peeling wallpaper closing in as I stared at my laptop. The camera feeds had given me everything I'd feared, proof that my family was a house of lies. But seeing it wasn't enough. I needed to understand it, to piece together how we'd gotten here and what I'd do next. I started with Emily and Kyle's footage, replaying it frame by frame. The living room clips showed them pouring Merlot, her laugh bright as she leaned into him. "He's got no clue," she said, clinking her glass against his. My throat burned. He was me. They moved to the couch, her fingers tracing his jaw, his hands sliding under her shirt. It wasn't just a fling. It was comfortable, practiced, like they'd carved out a secret life in my absence. I fast-forwarded to the kitchen feed. Empty wine bottles, her earrings on the counter, a post-it note with K, and a heart scribbled in her handwriting. I saved it all, every damning second. Next, John and Molly. Their clip was harder to stomach. The bedroom camera caught them slipping in, the door clicking shut. Molly's giggle was soft, nervous, as John pulled her onto the bed. "We're safe tonight," he said, his voice low. They kissed, slow at first, then desperate, their hands roaming like they'd forgotten the world outside. I paused the video, my chest heaving. They were twins, 16 years old, raised under our roof. How had they crossed this line? I forced myself to keep watching, catching Molly's whisper, "I don't care if it's wrong." John nodded, his eyes fierce. I stopped the tape, unable to take more, but I backed it up to a hard drive, my hands trembling. Then there was Sarah. I pulled up her texts, the ones I'd photographed while she slept. Wasn't just a fling. She'd sent him selfies, flirty emojis, plans for a weekend getaway. My name barely showed up in her phone. Just a few, "Hey, you free?" messages. I checked her Instagram again. More photos with the blazer guy, his arm around her waist at some rooftop party. She wasn't mine, not really. I was a side dish, like she was to me. I saved the screenshots, adding them to my growing file of betrayals. My own evidence stared back at me. Texts I'd sent Sarah, late-night voicemails begging for a quick meetup. I told Emily I was working late, told the kids I was caught up, but I'd been chasing a thrill that left me emptier every time. I opened an old photo on my phone. Our family at the county fair last summer, Emily's arm around me, John and Molly grinning with cotton candy. We looked happy whole. Now I saw the cracks, Emily's distracted smile, the kids' secret glances, my own forced grin. Had we been broken even then? I paced the room, the carpet rough under my socks. Emily and Kyle's affair wasn't new. The footage showed a rhythm, a history. I remembered her girls' nights, last year, how she'd come home giddy, blaming wine. Kyle had been around more back then, too, helping with the deck, staying for dinner. Had it started that far back? And the kids, when had their bond twisted? They'd always shared a room until middle school, bunk beds and whispered secrets. Had we missed something then? Some sign that their closeness was turning dangerous? Sarah's role was clearer. She was a player, same as me, using our affair to spice up her gilded life. Her husband's name, Richard, popped up in my emails, his signature on my last contract. If he found out, I'd lose my job, maybe more. But I wasn't scared of him. I was scared of facing Emily, of admitting I'd betrayed her as much as she'd betrayed me. I sat back down, opening a notebook I'd grabbed from the motel desk. I listed every clue. Emily's texts, Kyle's visits, the kids' DMs, Sarah's double life. I sketched a timeline, pinning dates to memories, Emily's late meetings, John and Molly's summer camp when they'd begged to share a cabin. It wasn't random. It was a pattern, a web we'd all woven. I tore out the page, crumpling it, then smoothed it flat again. This wasn't just about proof. It was about truth, and I wasn't sure I could handle it. The footage looped in my mind, Emily's laugh, Molly's whisper, Sarah's smirk. I thought of our house, the cedar siding we'd picked together, the treehouse I'd built for the kids. It was supposed to be our forever home, but now it felt like a stage for someone else's play. I leaned back, the motel's creaky chair groaning under me. I had everything I needed to blow it all open, but what then? Would exposing them fix us, or just burn it all down? I closed the laptop, my eyes stinging. Tomorrow, I'd watch again, dig deeper, make sure I hadn't missed anything. But tonight, I let myself feel it, the anger, the grief, the guilt. I wasn't the hero here, but I wasn't the villain either. I was just a guy who'd lost his family, and I needed to decide what to do about it. The evidence was a weight I couldn't shake, but it wasn't enough to just know. I had to act, to turn this mess into something I could control. I went back to the house, slipping into my role as the clueless husband. I kissed Emily's cheek at breakfast, asked about her day like nothing was wrong. "Book club tonight," she said, buttering toast. I nodded, knowing she'd see Kyle instead. With the kids, I kept it light, tossing John a soccer ball, complimenting Molly's new earrings. They smiled, but their eyes were guarded, like they sensed a storm. Inside, I was a general planning a siege. The footage, texts, and photos were my arsenal, but I needed the right moment to strike. I started by gathering more intel. I called Kyle's coworker, Mike, pretending to plan a fishing trip. "Kyle's been weird lately," Mike said over beers at a dive bar. "Always sneaking off, talking about some girl. Think it's serious." I gripped my bottle, forcing a laugh. "Classic Kyle," I said, but my mind screamed, "It's Emily." With John and Molly, I played subtler games. I forgot my phone in the den, leaving it open to a fake text from a coworker. Heard some wild rumors about the twins. They didn't bite, but I caught Molly checking my screen later, her face pale. I upped the ante, asking John to fix my laptop, knowing he'd see my search history, teen-sibling relationships. He avoided me for days after, confirming my fears. Sarah was a loose end I couldn't ignore. I met her at a hotel bar, her favorite spot for our trysts. "Missed you," she purred, sliding a martini my way. I leaned in, flirting back, but my eyes were on her purse, her phone peeked out, unlocked. When she hit the restroom, I scrolled her contacts. Had a new message. "Tonight, my place." I sent it to myself, then deleted the trace. She came back, oblivious, but I saw her for what she was, a mirror of my own mistakes. Back home, I fine-tuned my plan. A confrontation in private would let them lie, twist the truth. I needed witnesses, people who'd see their shame. Our annual block party was coming up, perfect cover. Neighbors, friends, Kyle, all in one place. I'd turn our backyard into a courtroom, the evidence my gavel. I told Emily I'd handle invites, slipping Kyle's name in casually. "Great idea," she said, her smile tight. She had no clue what was coming. I spent nights in my home office, editing the footage into a timeline. Emily and Kyle's kiss at 6:52 p.m., their whispers about me. John and Molly's bedroom scene, cropped to hide the worst, but clear enough to shock. I added screenshots, Emily's heart emoji, the kids' love you texts, Sarah's flirty chats. It was a documentary of our downfall, and I was the director. I backed it up to a USB drive, labeled it taxes, and hid it in my desk. I tested the setup, projecting clips onto our living room TV during Emily's errand. The images flickered, her laugh, their hands, the kids' embrace. It felt like betrayal all over again, but I memorized every frame, steeling myself. I'd show just enough to break them, not so much it'd ruin the kids forever. John and Molly were still mine, even if they'd lost their way. I thought about my own role. Exposing Emily and Kyle meant risking Sarah's truth coming out. If Richard, her husband, caught wind, I'd lose my job, maybe my reputation. But I was past caring about collateral damage. I wanted clarity, not safety. I called a divorce lawyer, just to talk options, and hid the number under plumber. I wasn't sure I'd leave Emily, but I needed to know I could. The block party loomed, 2 days away. I mowed the lawn, strung fairy lights, stocked the cooler, playing the perfect host. Emily helped, humming as she sliced watermelon, unaware of the bomb ticking. Kyle texted me, "Can't wait for the ribs." I replied, "It's gonna be epic," my fingers steady. The kids seemed nervous, sticking close, like they sensed a shift. I caught Molly eyeing the backyard, where I'd set up the projector for home movies. I lay awake the night before, Emily's breathing soft beside me. I pictured their faces when the truth hit, Emily's panic, Kyle's excuses, the kids' shame. Would it fix anything? Or just leave us all in ashes? I didn't know, but I couldn't live in the dark anymore. The plan was locked, the evidence loaded. I'd pull the trigger, and whatever came next, I'd face it standing. The block party was in full swing, neighbors milled around our backyard, kids chased glow sticks, and a country playlist hummed through Bluetooth speakers. I flipped burgers on the grill, my smile practiced, while Emily passed out lemonade, her sundress swaying. Kyle showed up with a six-pack, all charm, clapping backs like he owned the place. John and Molly hovered near the picnic table, sneaking glances at each other, their tension palpable. I waited until dusk, when everyone was loose from beer and potato salad. The projector screen was up, supposedly for a slideshow of last year's block party. I grabbed the remote, my pulse steady, and stepped to the center of the yard. "Got something special tonight," I said, loud enough to hush the chatter. Emily looked over, curious. Kyle raised an eyebrow. The kids froze, sensing trouble. I hit play. The screen lit up, not beach photos, but the living room feed. Emily and Kyle, lips locked, her hands tugging his shirt. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Emily's cup hit the grass, her face draining. "Jake, what the hell?" she shrieked. I didn't stop. The clip shifted, John and Molly in our bedroom, embracing, their whispers audible. "We're safe." A neighbor coughed, another turned away. Molly sobbed, bolting inside. John followed, red-faced. Kyle stepped forward, fists clenched. "This is fake, man. You photoshopped it." I flicked to the texts, his "tomorrow at 7, to Emily, her heart emoji. The crowd murmured, eyes darting between them. Emily shook her head, tears streaming. "It's not what it looks like," she choked out, but no one bought it. I took a breath, facing the sea of stunned faces. "I'm not clean either," I said, voice low. I flashed my phone, a text to Sarah. "Tonight, your place?" Whispers grew louder. Emily's jaw dropped. "I cheated too," I said. "But you," I pointed at her. "Then Kyle, you broke us." "And the kids," I trailed off, not wanting to crush them further. We're done lying. I dropped the remote and walked through the yard, past wide-eyed neighbors, past Kyle's glare, past Emily's sobs. The night air hit me as I stepped onto the street, my shoes crunching gravel. I didn't look back. The truth was out, jagged and ugly, and for the first time in months, I felt unburdened, like I'd shed a skin I'd outgrown. I rented a condo downtown, a one-bedroom with bare walls and city noise. I left the house to Emily. She could deal with the mortgage and memories. John and Molly stayed with her, starting therapy to untangle whatever drove them together. I didn't judge them. They were kids, lost in something bigger than they understood. I saw them weekends, awkward lunches at diners, but we didn't talk about it. Not yet. Emily called for weeks, leaving voicemails. Jake, we can fix this. I deleted them, blocked her number. Kyle moved to Austin, or so I heard. Good riddance. Sarah never reached out. I saw her on LinkedIn, still dazzling, still untouchable. My job held, barely. Richard never mentioned her, and I didn't ask. I threw myself into work, landing a new client, a tech startup with big dreams. I started running, my sneakers pounding park trails at dawn. The mirror showed a leaner me, eyes sharper, jaw set. You're back, I told my reflection one morning, and meant it. I wasn't the Jake who'd lied, who'd ignored the cracks. I was new, flawed, but free. The house, the barbecues, the life I'd known, they were gone, but I didn't miss them. I bought a coffee maker, a bookshelf, filled my nights with podcasts and old westerns. I was alone, but not lonely. I'd rebuilt myself from the wreckage, and that was enough.